This strategy that the Russians are using is very much designed to coincide with the change in the weather because of the change in seasons. And among those target sets is the Ukrainian infrastructure, particularly the electricity grid, followed by the heating system. And depending on what kind of winter actually develops in Ukraine, whether it's a cold winter, a hot winter, or something in between, the course of the war will depend on those particular changes. Winter is going to play a defining factor in every single part of the country. What I think that the Ukrainians will probably do is they were most likely to move more in the south, given warmer climatic conditions. They can try to continue their momentum and move forward if they establish a bridgehead on the other side, on the eastern bank of the Dnipro River. The one thing that can stop them from doing that, from taking over that plain, would be the weather. And if it gets too warm and things get muddy, that could potentially present some difficulties in terms of forward movement. It could also prevent them from being able to encircle Russian forces or move them out of those areas. Again, it would depend on the condition of the Russian forces and their ability to adapt to the climate as well. Now, the other thing that they could do is they could move into the eastern areas. So these areas get very cold very quickly in the winter months. Doesn't mean that movement is necessarily prevented, but this area has in parts been occupied by the Russians since, and their separatist allies, since 2014. So what you would possibly see in the east is kind of a seesaw battle between the two forces. If the Ukrainians can hold it together through these winter months, and they can take advantage in some respects of the cold temperatures, and if they can move things forward, they could potentially take portions of the Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts. That would be a bit of a sea change. There would be other difficulties that they could potentially encounter there, but climatically that is a possibility if they find their movement in the south is stopped. The Russian strategy is going to be one of attrition, to grind down the Ukrainians. They'll do that militarily. They will try to stabilize the front lines in the south and the east. They will try to sit out any storms that may occur during the winter months, whereas the Ukrainians, on the other hand, they are going to rely on a war of movement as much as they possibly can. They want to gain as much territory or regain as much territory as they possibly can before they are forced to stop, whether that stop occurs because of weather conditions, logistical conditions, or political considerations. Ukrainians cannot afford to have a stalemate. The Russians want a stalemate, and that these two different forms of warfare are what are clashing on the fields of Ukraine right now.